The photo I took shattered my family's illusion of unity, exposing the secrets that ultimately led to its downfall. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. But the photo I took spoke much louder than that. It shattered my world. One painstaking piece at a time. My family was never perfect. But until that moment, we lived under the illusion of unity. A facade that crumbled with a single snapshot. It all started innocently, with me, a camera, and a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right in the family dynamics. I never imagined how deep the cracks ran or how violently everything would come apart once those secrets were exposed. My name is Alex, and this is how a simple photo blew my family apart, leaving behind nothing but broken pieces. Growing up, I thought we were the kind of family people admired. We lived in a decent suburban neighborhood, with white picket fences and neighbors who waved politely while watering their perfectly manicured lawns. My father, Richard, was the epitome of a self-made man, or so he liked to remind everyone. He worked his way up from a modest upbringing, becoming a mid-level executive at a company whose name never mattered to me, but whose status meant everything to him. My mother, Elaine, was the perfect homemaker in public. She attended every PTA meeting, coordinated bake sales, and always made sure our house was spotless for visitors. To anyone looking in, we were the quintessential American family, the kind of people you see in advertisements for home insurance or barbecue grills. But behind closed doors, everything was different. My father had a short temper. His anger wasn't the explosive, violent kind. No, it was worse. It was the kind that simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to lash out with cutting words and cold looks that stung more than any slap ever could. My mother was no better. She was an expert at playing the victim, manipulating those around her into believing she was always the wrong party. My older sister, Jessica, took after my parents in all the wrong ways. She was cunning, always 2 steps ahead of everyone else, and she used her intelligence to manipulate and deceive. I was the odd one out, the quiet observer who tried to stay out of trouble. The one who never quite fit the mold my parents wanted to force me into. It was during a family gathering that everything began to unravel. My parents had decided to throw a party for my father's promotion. A big event with extended family, friends, and colleagues. The house was filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the scent of hors d'oeuvres my mother had spent hours preparing. I had always been interested in photography, and my father, wanting to show off the talents of his son, handed me the family camera, urging me to take pictures of the event. I obliged, walking around the house, capturing candid moments, my uncle chatting with a coworker, my mother laughing at a joke, my father, drink in hand, beaming with pride. It was when I reached the study that I took the photo, the one that would change everything. The study was a room my father rarely let anyone into. It was his sanctuary, filled with books he never read and awards that meant more to him than his family ever did. The door had been left slightly ajar, and through the gap, I saw my sister, Jessica, standing too close to a man I didn't recognize. They were whispering, her hand on his arm, his face inches from hers. Something about the way they stood, the way they looked at each other, sent a chill down my spine. I raised the camera, my curiosity getting the better of me, and snapped a photo just as Jessica leaned in, her lips brushing against his. I pulled back, heart pounding, not quite believing what I had just seen. Jessica was engaged, had been for over a year, to a man named Todd. They were supposed to be the perfect couple, the golden pair my parents adored. But here she was, with someone else, in our father's study, during a party meant to celebrate our family's success. I knew I had captured something I wasn't meant to see, and for a moment, I considered deleting the photo. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the need for proof, or maybe it was a darker part of me, the part that was tired of pretending everything was fine. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I avoided Jessica, avoided my parents, and kept the camera close to my chest, as if it were a lifeline. When the party finally ended and the guests left, I went up to my room, plugged the camera into my laptop, and scrolled through the photos. There it was, clear as day, Jessica with a man who wasn't her fiancé. Their bodies close, their expressions intimate. I stared at the image for what felt like hours, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Anger, betrayal, confusion, they all mixed together, leaving me feeling hollow. The next few days were a test of my self-control. I avoided Jessica, who seemed oblivious to what I had seen. And I avoided my parents, who were too caught up in their own lives to notice anything was wrong. I kept the photo to myself, unsure of what to do with it. Part of me wanted to confront Jessica, to demand an explanation, but another part of me was afraid of what I might learn. Afraid of the consequences. It wasn't until a week later, when I overheard my parents talking in hushed voices in the kitchen, that I made my decision. They were arguing something about money, about secrets, about Jessica. I couldn't make out all the details, but what I heard was enough to make my blood run cold. My father mentioned something about covering for her again, and my mother, her voice tight with stress, said something about keeping up appearances. It was clear they knew, maybe not about the man in the study, but about something Jessica had done. They were hiding it, just like they always did, sweeping everything under the rug to maintain the illusion of perfection. I was done with it, done with the lies, the secrets, the pretending. I opened my laptop, found the photo, and uploaded it to a private album. I sent the link to Todd, along with a simple message: "You deserve to know the truth." I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one, not directly, at least. But 2 days later, the fallout began. It started with a phone call. Todd, furious, demanding to speak to Jessica. My parents, confused, tried to calm him down, but it was no use. He told them everything about the photo, about the man in the study, about the lies. My mother cried, my father yelled, and Jessica, caught in the middle, denied everything. But the evidence was there, undeniable, and the more she tried to lie her way out of it, the deeper she dug her own grave. The family imploded. Todd broke off the engagement. My father disowned Jessica, and my mother, well, she retreated into herself, refusing to speak to anyone. The house, once filled with the illusion of warmth and love, became cold and silent. My father moved into the study, spending his days drinking and brooding, while my mother spent her time in the garden, her face hollow, her eyes vacant. Jessica moved out, disappearing without a word, and I was left alone in the aftermath, the weight of what I had done pressing down on me. I thought I would feel relief, vindication, maybe, but all I felt was emptiness. The photo had exposed the truth, but it had also destroyed everything. My family, flawed as it was gone, and in its place was nothing but silence and regret. I tried to tell myself that it wasn't my fault, that the cracks had always been there, that I had only brought them to the surface. But the guilt lingered, a constant reminder of what I had done. Weeks passed, and the house grew quieter. My father stopped going to work, stopped caring about anything. My mother, once so meticulous about keeping up appearances, let the house fall into disarray. The neighbors whispered, the invitations to barbecues and parties stopped coming, and the people who once admired us now avoided us. We had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most perfect facades could crumble. One night, as I sat in my room, staring at the photo that had started it all, I realized that I couldn't stay there any longer. The house was a tomb, filled with the ghosts of what once was, and I needed to get out before it swallowed me whole. I packed a bag, left a note on the kitchen table, and walked out the door, not knowing where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of freedom, a weight lifting off my shoulders. The photo had destroyed my family, but maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe it was better to live in the harsh light of the truth than in the comforting darkness of a lie. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: I was done pretending, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough.